Hello everybody, welcome back to another Dragon Quest XI character skills guide. This time it's going to be for Jade. So yes, it's finally here. I know a lot of you guys in the comments have been asking where the Dragon Quest skill guides have been. I'm sorry guys, okay, it's here. It's finally here. I do apologize that it has been so long, because I know some people are just here for those kinds of videos. So yeah, Jade is today. So let's just get straight into it. If you are new, there's a playlist. You'll be able to find all my other skills guides. And so yeah, Jade. Oh baby, Jade is definitely a fan favorite. I had a few comments though saying that they weren't quite sure how to use Jade properly. So don't worry, I'll go through it. So Jade is very different to the last character we did a video on, Sylvando. Sylvando, my thing with him was that Sylvando kind of fell into this range of being a jack of all trades, master of none, whereas Jade is just pure DPS. Like, she doesn't really offer too much utility. She doesn't really have too much variation in what she's going to be offering you. She's just pure, raw damage. She's going to be kicking ass. You know, that's kind of fits in with her character. She's fast. She's really strong. I think Jade's great, but she obviously doesn't offer a lot of utility, which is fine. She doesn't get any spells or anything. She's a pure like martial artist class. So the only progression spells and abilities is listed here. She gets revamp. You get this during the intermission of Act 1 and 2. 16 MP cost, which for Jade, I will point out one thing here with Jade is that she struggles with is MP. Jade's MP is really low, and she has a lot of high MP cost things. So if you're in like a long dungeon or something like that, you may be struggling with Jade's MP. Obviously, I never really run out of MP healing items, personally, but I always usually like to just farm a few Seeds of Magic just to boost Jade's MP just for my own convenience, but that's nothing really too terrible. I just thought I should mention it. You might want to stock her inventory up with some magic waters and things like that. But anyway, revamp, 60 MP cost, it raises Jade's defense, deafness by 50%, attack by 25%, and raises resistance to status ailments, lasts for 4 turns, and it gives her the great vampire outfit. I'm not going to spoil like how this happens in the story if you haven't played that part yet, but just know it's an event skill. It's really solid. It means that you don't need to have any characters with buffing spells in the party for her to be able to buff herself. However, it's kind of like, it's very good when you first get it, but by the time when you get probably into Act 3, you are going to want to use those buffing skills. It only raises the attack by 25% in comparison to like a spell like Oompful, which will raise it by 50% in 1 turn, but it does have all these other bonuses too. So it just depends if you want to spend a turn with Jade to get this buff off. Usually it is pretty worth it. Just depends on your party setup, I guess. So pretty solid skill. Can't complain. Okay, so then Jade has technically 2, but technically 3 different weapon types. She has the option of claws, spears, and fisticuffs. Fisticuffs being just bare fist. No weapon equipped at all. Which is, she's the only character that can actually make use of that. How do I want to go about this? I think I will talk about, I'm going to end kind of talking about all of them at once, because there's some pretty interesting comparisons I want to make. So claws. So she's one of the 2 characters who can use claws, the other one being Rab. So let's just go through the skills first, and then I'll give my opinions. So Propeller Blade, 2 MP cost, 4 SP cost, very early on skill. Deals wind elemental damage equal to your attack, plus level to a single enemy. So it's basically like, it's just better than a physical attack. Like if you're going to physical attack, if you've got nothing else to do against a single target, you may as well just use Propeller Blade. But I never really end up using it. It's just something I kind of forget about. It does do wind damage, which I didn't realize, so I guess if you figured out the enemy has a wind weakness, then it'll do a little more, but honestly, it's not something I ever bothered to think about. But it's kind of like Flame Slash in the sense where you might as well use it instead of regular physical attack. But in most cases, you probably won't need it. Can Opener. Deals 3 times damage to a single enemy if they're mechanical type, 2 times damage otherwise. That's actually interesting. I didn't know that it did 2 times damage otherwise. But I mean, regular physical attacks with claws usually aren't that great anyway. Claws tend to have kind of low base attack. But I mean, Canopy seems pretty good. I think it's pretty easy to see if an enemy is mechanical type, because they're usually like, you know, mechanical looking. Whereas some of the enemy categories like beast, demon type, like you can't always be certain. So I feel like Can Opener is probably one of the more useful enemy type attacking abilities. 3 times damage is pretty good. Hawkeye Claw deals 1.8 to 2.2 times your damage to a single enemy, ignores blind and evasion and any damage reductions. This is actually very useful if, say, yes, you've been blinded, or the enemies boosted their evasion, or anything like that, any stat changes, and you don't want to, you haven't got the time or the turns to get rid of those. This is pretty useful. But then the most important claw skill, which trumps just everything else here, is Hard Claw. Hard Claw is absolutely incredible. It is the bread and butter skill of claws. It is by far Jade's best skill, in my opinion. So it deals 3 hits of 1.3, 1.2, 1.1, so it gradually goes down. So it's 3.6 times your damage total, which is really good to a single enemy. And the thing it doesn't mention here is that it kind of goes without saying, is that every single hit of this can crit, which is what makes it so good. Because not only is it multiplying your base damage, it can also crit. And when it crits, it fucking crits, let me tell you. Hard Claw is just really good. It's 10 MP, which is why, again, I like to raise Jade's MP, just so she can basically just spam this. I never use anything other than Hard Claw when I want to physically attack with Jade. It's just so good. Single target damage. It's just really good. And you can get it really early as well. Like, it's not difficult to get this pretty damn early on in a skill tree. I can't remember exactly how it looks, but it's very, very nice. Yeah, just anything with that multiplier is going to be really good, and each hit can crit, so it's a win. You can build really high crit with Jade, and the great thing is that Jade has a lot of personal equipment that boost crit, especially later in the game in Act 2 and Act 3. Some of her personal outfits, like the princess, some of the princess outfits, like the Minerva outfits, I believe. She's got a lot of personal equipment that you would just find naturally through playing the game that you can raise crit with. You have, I believe it's the assassin card that raises crit, all sorts of stuff. So it really lends well for Jade. You're gonna be, yeah, doing really well with that. So I highly advise the crit path. Build all the crit you can get and just go ham with Hard Claw, and it's so much fun. I just love it. That's my personal recommendation. Obviously we've got some other claw skills here, like Crone's Claw. You recover some MP. This can help with our MP problems, I guess, but I mean, you have to spend 6 MP to actually do this, and you only get 5% of damage dealt back in MP, so you're probably not going to be gaining that much MP. It's just something I never bothered to use. Yeah, I don't bother with it. It's kind of like Miracle Slash in a way. If I needed the MP, I would just use an MP recovery item, right? And then Air Razor, it's more of a static wind elemental attack. So again, if you want wind damage, there you go. But by the point we get it, because I believe this is an Act 2 unlock for Jade, I just never really bother with it. Hard Claw is just always usually better. And yeah, again, with the crit, she gets critical hit chance plus 6%, which is really nice, and she gets some HP absorb. A lot of HP absorb, actually, on claw skills, so she has a little bit of self-sustain, too, which is really, really nice. So I think claws are great just for Hard Claw alone, and some of these passives here, I think claws are Jade's best option. But I will obviously talk about spears. A lot of people love Jade with spears, and this is the first case where, usually with all the other characters, I've had a pretty strong opinion about which weapon I prefer. And I definitely think that for me, personally, I just have more fun with claws. However, I think spears are very, very viable for Jade. Just because she has a lot of the same stuff that makes Serena really great with spears, except for the fact that Jade obviously has much higher innate base attack and just more raw damage because she's just more of a DPS focused character. Counter Prod, same as Serena, more beast type damage. Thunder Thrust, this is always great, guaranteed crit as long as it hits, 50% rate, dealing with metal slime enemies or enemies with high defense, always good, really solid skill. Yeah, it's so much like Thunder Thrust and Lightning Thrust, which is basically, as you can see here, the upgraded version of Thunder Thrust, which you get a little bit later on. It's always almost worth, even if you are using claws. I always just usually like to just chuck a spear into Jade's inventory so she can equip it on the fly in case I really do want to use one of these skills, because it's just really nice to have that option. Deliverance, again, more damage to undead types, so if you know the enemy types, these will be useful. Party Pooper is your AoE. That's one thing to mention, is that claws do not have an AoE attack. It's all just focused on single damage. So Jade is definitely one of those characters where I like to just bring in for boss fights most of the time. She's just really, really good for boss fights. Until later on where she will get some AoE coverage. Multi-thrust. This is one that everyone really likes. I don't think we've seen a character that has multi-thrust. I think Jade is the only character that has multi-thrust. I don't think Serena gets it. But it deals 4 hits of 0.75 times your base damage to random enemies with selected enemy group, low critical hit chance. So this is what leads me to believe that Hardcore is the better option. By the time when you get Jade, you'll be able to basically have a choice of multi-thrust or Hardcore in terms of which weapon you want to invest in Act 1. And you can just see here that Hardcore is just better, like, overall. However, multi-thrust has the benefits of it just hit random enemies. So, I mean, if you're fighting multiple enemies, you can have a chance to do damage to the group. But it is random, so it's kind of eh. It's just lower damage, a little bit more MP. It isn't really the biggest deal. It's still really good. But if you're looking at raw damage numbers, then Hardcore is going to be better. And I mean, yeah, that's all there is to say. If you got a really good spear with a really good effect or something like that, then maybe multi-thrust would be better. But I just find more success with Hardcore and critting stuff, personally. So, multi-thrust is still a good ability. Crushed Ice is basically a better multi-thrust. However, it is ice damage, so it will be worse if the enemy resists ice. Serena did have this same ability. It's one of Serena's best spear abilities. I did talk about this in the Serena video. However, this Crushed Ice ability you don't get until Act 2, or whenever it is that Jade's skill tree gets upgraded. So you won't be getting this right away, but it is pretty good. This rivals Hardclaw. Again, however, enemy resistances, Hardclaw doesn't have to worry about that. So I still think Hardclaw is the better option. But if you want to use spears, Crushed Ice, multi-thrust, very, very good. Lightning Storm. Lightning damage to a group of enemies and either increases the damage they take from zap spells or has a 20% chance of paralyzing them. I think this is really good. It's a group, so, you know, Jade doesn't really have too many AoE options, so this is really good. Pair this with the hero, it might, you know, reduce their resistance to zap spells, which is nice. And it can paralyze. All in all, pretty solid AoE ability. The only thing is, 24 MP for Jade is very steep. So I do advise that you raise her MP with C's if you really want to make use of this ability a lot. Lightning Thrust, again, same as Thunder Thrust, I've already mentioned. Really, really good ability. Even if you are using claws, just having an option of this is pretty nice. And Flashback. I've never made use of this ability. It applies a buff to Jade the last 2 turns, lowering her defense to 1, but increasing her evasion to 100%, and allows her to perform counterattacks to deal 1.5 times your damage. This just seems like a really strange way of giving her a counter skill. Like, it's an interesting counter, because it raises her evasion, which is pretty good, but it lowers her defense a lot. And, you know, if the enemy has something that's guaranteed to hit, I mean, I've never really messed about with this. By the point that you're going to be getting it, I can't see it being that amazing. Like, late game, you're not really going to be banking on any counterattacks. I don't know, Flashback is just a very odd skill. I feel like it could be very good in some situations, but it's just something that by the point you get it, it's kind of just not something you want to be using. But let me know if you have used the skill and made use of it, because I personally haven't. And yeah, the passives here, shooting gets 4% crit chance on spears in comparison to 6% with claws, and claws have the added bonus of HP absorb, and they get a few more attack bonuses. So yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm gonna say it's really up to you which you prefer, spears or claws. I personally just have more fun with claws. I like crits, I like the big numbers from Hardclaw, and it is just a little bit more damage. But honestly, Jade is very flexible. I mean, yeah, she's also flexible in every sense of the word. Yeah, both her weapon choices are great. Here's the weird one, though, is Fisticuffs. Yeah, I don't know why you would limit yourself to only using Fisticuffs, because the interesting thing about this is you can still use the Fisticuff abilities even when you have a weapon equipped, which I think is kind of interesting. Leg sweep, dealing no damage, 75% success rate of knocking an enemy down. Why? I mean, I'd never make use of this. Harvest Moon deals 2.5 times damage to a single enemy. If enemy is bird type, it's 1.3 times damage otherwise. High critical chance. Again, just a type skill. Nothing really too special. Vacuum Smash is an AoE, so if you get this fairly early on, it could be nice. Very cheap AoE. Miracle Moon deals 5 hits of half your damage to random enemies. Recovers HP equal to damage of the first hit. I remember this being pretty decent when I used it a few times. I mean, it's not the greatest damage, but if you need the HP recovery, it's actually a decent amount of HP recovery because it is 5 hits. And again, I think it's on the way to multi-feat, so you're probably going to get this before. And as you can see, it's kind of a similar ability, except it heals and doesn't have as many hits. So until you get multi-feat, this is pretty good. Once you get multi-feat, though, it kind of goes out the window, because again, I've said this before, that the HP recovery isn't really that necessary. Multi-feat deals 7 hits, damage of 0.5 times your damage. So it's 3.5 total. Still not as much as Hardclaw, just keep that in mind. It's random enemies in the selected enemy group. 10 MP. This is good, because at this point, Jade still won't have any good AoE options, really. So I think multi-feat can be pretty good. I think every hit can crit, but I don't know if it's just me or if there's actually a thing. The description doesn't really say if it lowers crit chance. You would think that this would be really good, because 7 hits and every single one of them could crit, right? I don't remember off the top of my head, but I never seem to have the success rate with multi-feat as I do with Hardclaw. Hardclaw just seems to crit out the ass all the time. The multi-feat just never really did it for me, and the damage it just doesn't hit the same. But it is a good ability. But I mean, if you're looking at raw numbers, Hardclaw is still better. So yeah, I mean, nothing has still beat Hardclaw. Hardclaw is still the king in terms of raw damage here. She gets some pretty nice passives under Fisticuffs. But I mean, yeah, she can use all these skills even while having a weapon equipped. You don't have to unequip Jade to use the Fisticuff skills. So I mean, it's basically just more skills for it to make use of. So they're just there. They're pretty good. They're not a priority. I would prioritize just getting Hardclaw on top of anything else. And then, you know, there's some nice passives here. It's just a nice tree. It's just like a nice bonus, like a nice little piece of fruit on top of the dessert that just like makes it all that more appealing. Interesting analogy, but there we go. And then her final tree is her personal tree, the Allure tree. This is all about charm. Like, this is the closest thing that Jade has to utility is her ability to charm / beguile monsters. This is what this tree is all about, and this is the thing that Dragon Quest games always have to do. You can't have a female character in a Dragon Quest game that isn't played into this weird stereotype that Square Enix have created. Yuji Horii, I don't know what you're doing, but there we go. This is a whole nother video in itself, so I'm not going to get into that, but I'm just going to talk about the skills. So hip drop, again, 2 MP cost. You get it very early on if you put in the tree. It's just more damage in your base attack. There you go. Use it if you want. After early on, it's not going to be useful. So Puff Buff, beguile an enemy with a 50 to 75% success rate. Scales off your charm. 0 MP cost. This is the thing, right? This isn't going to work on like most bosses, I don't think. And if it does, you're going to have to be pretty lucky. Maybe it works on some bosses, I don't know. Using it on regular enemies, why would you waste the turn when most regular enemies are going to go down in a couple of attacks? You might as well just deal some damage. The only thing this is good for is being a pet power piece. Like, I don't really know what else to say about that. I remember having to go on my way to get it just for a pet power piece for a side quest. I've never really made use of it. Again, I think Jade is just there for raw damage, and that's about it. But I mean, if you want to have fun beguiling enemies, there you go. Blow Kiss just deals damage, but beguiles. Sexy Beam does more damage and has less chance to beguile. I mean, these skills are really all the same. Except, well, actually, no, Pink Typhoon is not. But these skills right here, Sexy Beam, Blow Kiss, and Puff Puff, are just like better versions of each other. I guess this one just has less % chance of beguiling, but this has way more damage. So, again, this kind of fixes the problem where you want to deal damage. So, I mean, I guess you could just use this and you could get the bonus of beguiling as like a nice extra. But, I mean, it scales off Charm. It's just kind of there. It's alright. Pink Typhoon, however, I will say, Pink Typhoon, Femme Fatale, and Pink Tornado are actually pretty good, one after the other, because they are all enemies. This is Jade's only all-hitting attack. I actually really like these. Pink Tornado at endgame, just for AoE packs. It's wind damage, so that's whatever, but it's really nice just to have an all-hitting attack. Really useful. Femme Fatale actually heals Jade. Damage dealt to the leftmost enemy hit. And this one actually is asleep instead of beguile, which is interesting. I didn't actually realize that. This one has... yeah, they all have 10%. So you're not really in it for the beguile. You're more using these skills just for the hitting all enemies. Oh, and apparently Femme Fatale isn't wind damage, which is interesting. But yeah, I mean... they kind of end up replacing each other one after the other. Pink Tornado is, I think, the one you're going to get last. So that's just the one I end up using. They're good skills. Not much else to say. You're not going to use it on a single target. They're purely there just for taking on enemy packs, AoEs. Yeah, decent skills. Not much else to say. They're okay. Nothing to, you know, scream and shout about. And then she just gets a bunch of passives, like Charm. Helps all these skills here, which is nice. Res, Pepper Power Up, and then Pep Chance. So I mean, it's heavily focused on pumping her charm stats. So she will get to pretty high charm values. I don't remember who's gonna have the highest of her and Sylvando. I think it is Sylvando, purely because Sylvando has a lot of equipment that raises charm, whereas Jade has a lot more equipment that's also gonna raise crit, and just you're gonna want to build crit. Charm is there, like it helps these skills, but what you care about is the damage of Hard Claw, Multi-Thrust, and Crushed Ice. You're going to want to build crit and just raw damage. And that is what Jade's really all about. Just like, yeah, it says here, weaknesses. All she can do is deal damage, but you know what? She's really good at it. She is really good at it. Jade isn't, like, the most spectacular character in the world, only because she can do a lot of damage, but she still gets outclassed by characters like Eric and Veronica, in my opinion, that can do other stuff. However, who's gonna say no to a sexy martial artist that deals a crap ton of damage, does a lot of critical hits, has some great animations, very versatile character? Like, she's not got any bad options, like a lot of the other characters I would say have some kind of mediocre weapon choices. I think you really can't go wrong with Jade. So I would just say, personal recommendation, Hard Claw it up, baby. That's all I have to say. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Next time we'll be doing Rab, which is going to be a more probably controversial episode in my opinions on Rab. So if you're excited for that, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out on that. I will hopefully not have the wait for the Rab video as long. I do apologize to those of you who are waiting for it. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you next time. Comment down below what you like to do with Jade. Not in a weird way. Don't be weird. Okay, I'm gonna leave. Peace out. Have a nice day.